makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, I will be having a conversation with Desch, the founder of As You Are LLC, a company focused on empowering and supporting individuals on their journey to sobriety. Molly's life used to revolve around drinking, but with her health condition and her relationship shallow, she knew it was time for a change. Choosing sobriety was a tough decision, but it led her down a path of self-discovery and resilience. Molly understands the fear that comes with quitting alcohol, and her mission is to help others find the strength and courage to do the same. Join me as I hear from Molly about her inspiring journey and how she is making a difference in the lives of those seeking sobriety. Good morning and welcome, Molly. We are excited. I am excited to have you share your story and expertise as a sobriety coach. Your dedication to helping individuals in their journey toward being sober is truly inspiring. Can you tell us about your experience with alcohol and how it led you for you to make that decision to say, I'm going to get sober?
Love to share my story with you. It's kind of a long story. I started drinking alcohol pretty young in high school, just hanging out with friends. And, that was just like what everybody was doing, hanging out with that kind of crowd. I really just kind of morphed into a daily drinker later on in my life. Probably after I became a mom. It really changed after I became a mom. I felt like I lost a sense of who I was. When you're a new mom, I was pretty young. I was 24 when I had my first kid. And you have no idea what you're doing. You can read all the books and take all the classes and you just have no idea what you're doing. So, with that being said, I became a daily drinker as a new mom. I felt like it was relaxing, frustrations and stress. It just kind of melted away with alcohol. And as I developed that crutch on drinking, it just became a part of my daily life. I was married. My husband was also a daily drinker. So it was just really easy to fall into that trap. There was no accountability. The friends that we had, they were drinking just as much as we were. And as life continued, I had a successful career. I was working in the technology industry. So I had a really good job, a nice home. My kids were active in sports and music. And I just felt like there was just something missing. And as I became so dependent emotionally on alcohol, I began to kind of wonder what it would look like to not drink. There was a woman that lived across the street from me, and she was not a drinker at all. She had 3 boys of her own. They were very active in their church and their community. And I remember thinking one time, what would that be like? I kind of felt tied to my house because when the day was over, as soon as I would get home, I would open a drink. And so I felt like I couldn't really leave my house. You know what I mean? You can't really take it with you. And so that kind of began, it was like a little seed planted in my head about, what would life be like without alcohol? And it actually wasn't until several years later that I actually decided to get sober. So my marriage wasn't very well. There was a lot of, turmoil in that, and my career was still okay. Like I didn't feel like I was progressing as much as I wanted to. I'm very much of a high achiever, a knowledge seeker. I'm an Enneagram 5, so I am like all about like getting the knowledge and feeling like the downside to that is you also kind of have this complex that you don't know enough. You're not an expert. So that kind of held me back in really achieving my goals. After I got divorced a few years ago, I kind of spiraled a little bit out of control. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. I was making some really bad choices. Now that it was just me as the parent in the house, I just felt like I wasn't emotionally and mentally there for my kids that, they needed that. They were in their adolescent years, a little bit younger. And there was just always something in the back of my head that was telling me that there was something more for me. Like I had more potential. There was something else, right? So about 3.5 years ago is when I decided to get sober. I was having a pretty bad time trying to get back out there and date after my divorce. I was attracting the wrong kind of guys in my life, and it was just like, oh my God, what is happening? And I got really, really depressed. I had an episode where I was binging for several days in a row, and I got really, really depressed, suicidal, if you will. And there was one particular day that I had been drinking all day, and I wasn't at home, and my son called to see what I was doing, where I was. And I was just a complete wreck. I was a mess. I was crying, just very depressed. And he just said to me, I love you, Mom. I want you to come home. Please come home. You're a good mom. Just come home.
Aww.
And that was it. That's what it took. And that very day, it was as if the hand of God literally came down and just smacked me across the face and said, get it together, Molly. You've got to get it together. And I did. And that was the last day I drank, and haven't looked back since.
This is so inspiring. I feel like I want to cry.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. When you said about drinking, drinking is like even when I was young, we used to make actually alcohol. We make the drink ourselves. But my mom used to make them, and kind of like, especially if we're having like a birthday parties, and then like there's certain drinks we make that include alcohol in them. And I learned how to make them with my mom, and I will taste them and I will drink them because it tastes good. But the funny thing about me is I wasn't really an alcohol person, like drinking a lot, but I will drink an occasionally like a glass of wine if I go out for dinner and things like that. But when I got pregnant, what happened with me is 6 months after I gave birth, I decided I'm going to drink something. Notably, I vomit. And my next appointment to my doctor, and I said, I don't understand. If I drink alcohol, I vomit. The doctor said, sometimes that happens. Your body can't take it anymore. So until that day, I can't drink alcohol. Even if I smell it, I feel like I want to vomit. For whatever reason, I couldn't.
That's really interesting.
It was very strange because as a kid, like alcohol is something that's a part of my family. Everybody, we're not heavy drinker, but everyone drinks. If we're eating dinner or having a party, everyone drinks. So for me, it was kind of like, I can't drink alcohol. it didn't really bother me as much. It was like perhaps God make that decision for better for me. Maybe as it having a kid and drinking, maybe it's not the best idea as well. But for me, it was until today, I don't have an answer to that. Why my body changed and cannot accept alcohol. If I smell it, even when when you cook, sometimes you will add a little bit of alcohol in the food. I can't even do that either.
Oh my goodness.
Completely
I
alcohol, I
agree with
can't.
you. I feel like I
Yes.
agree with you. I feel like there's a reason why that happened, you
Yes.
know?
So I
Maybe the universe is just like, this is not for you.
exactly. So it's the same thing as you. Like that phone call changed your life. Sometimes it just God needs to point us to the right direction. Sometimes He needs to create it in a way that we can understand, in a way that to stop us. And I think your son was that one. He's supposed to make that happen. And guess
100%.
look at it now, what you are doing and how you are helping people. So it's from experience. It's the things that you went through in your life to make it happen. But do you think that your divorce and everything that happened in your life got something to do with you being drinking all the time?
I think at a young age, I didn't learn the proper techniques to cope with emotions. I grew up in a household where you didn't really show emotions.
Hmm.
My dad was raised by very like a strict man. Like my grandfather was, you never hugged him. There was no crying.
No
And so that
huggies.
was very much like, yeah, that was very much a part of my upbringing, being around them and not feeling accepted or loved. And so based on the work that I've done on myself, I never learned how to deal with emotions. And so when they would come up, let's say, for example, I was having an issue with my spouse at the time. I didn't know what to do with it. So I would just drink and then I wouldn't have to think about it.
So pretty much you use alcohol, well, you use alcohol for almost anything. So just to avoid dealing with that problem, you just like, I'll drink and I'll forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you're not drinking and these emotions come up, you're forced to face them
Yeah.
head on. And if you don't have healthy coping mechanisms, they can really damage you. They can really lead you to drinking or drugs, perhaps, or, there's a lot of addictions out there that people use to cope with the emotions that come up in your life every day.
So now can you tell us, can you walk us through your journey towards, like for example, now for right now you are sober. Can you walk us through that? How did you actually become sober? From that phone call, how do you actually manage to say, I'm going to be sober and stay sober?
Yeah, no, great question. Well, I wasn't sure how I was going to get sober. I just knew that that was my path forward. The first thought that popped into my mind was rehab. So I was talking to, he was my ex-husband at the time. Like maybe I need to go to rehab because I told him, I want to quit drinking. And he brought up a very valid point that, you know, what are the kids going to do? They can't come live with me because I've got this really crazy job that I have to be there at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So rehab was out. So then I looked into an outpatient rehab center. I went and visited it and met with one of the counselors. And it was a facility in which people are court ordered to attend. So they weren't really women that I could relate to, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So they were like forced to go there. And it wasn't just alcohol, it was heroin, crack
Oh,
cocaine. These are the people that were there. So I was like, well, that's
out.
out too. Yeah. So I called my mom. She lives in Arizona. And I said, look, this is what's going on. I need to quit drinking and I don't know what to do. I need you to just come be with me. So she did. She flew out and she stayed with me for 2 weeks. And the first day she got here, her suggestion was AA, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, okay, that's the only other thing other than rehab that I know that is even an option. So I went online and found an AA meeting that was pretty close to my house. And I got in the car and I went. And that drive was awful. I was so nervous and just all these emotions coming up like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. I remember pulling in and parking and just having this resistance to get out of the car and go
Yes.
inside. And going inside, and people were very welcoming. They wanted to get to know you and let you know that it was a safe space and that you were always welcome. So I did AA for about 3 months. I didn't really particularly like AA. It was more of, so they say that you are powerless to alcohol. I didn't like that. I didn't like
Hmm.
hearing that I had no power over alcohol. And I get where they're coming from, like the real meaning behind it, but I just couldn't get on board with feeling like this, like I had a disease. A lot of people say that alcoholism is a disease, and I do not believe
I don't
that
really see that.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a choice, and it's an addictive substance. It's more addictive than cocaine. And so that's why there's so many people that turn to it time and time again. So I stayed with AA for 3 months. I met another gal that was similar in my age. She also had kids, and she sent me a picture of some of the books that she had been reading. It's called Quit Lit, so like
Hmm.
quit literature. And there's a ton of books out there. And so I started diving in. I love to read. Like I told you, I'm an
Yes.
Enneagram 5. I'm all about getting that knowledge. So I read Annie Gray. She has a book called This Naked Mind. It's very much about like the science behind what alcohol does to your body, to your brains, to your emotion. And so I really liked that. I read another book by Laura McCowan, We Are the Luckiest. And it kind of just like all these books, the more I kept reading, the more hopeful I felt. Like there's other women out there that experience the
Yes.
same thing or similar stories to mine. And they are now sober and living a very fulfilling life. So that's what I did. I just read, and for the first year didn't drink a single drop. And shortly after my 1 year anniversary, me and this guy that I had been dating went on a trip. We went on this like weekend trip, and I thought, hey, I've got this. I can have a drink. So we went to this restaurant, and of course I ordered a drink, and it felt really good. It tasted delicious. I got this like immediate buzz because I hadn't drank a single drop in over a year. And that was it. And I just let it be.
Wow.
And then about 6 months later, my boyfriend, the same guy that I was seeing, went on a trip himself. He went out of town. He was traveling for work. And I had found out something about him and this other woman that he had been talking to. And all these emotions come up. And again, I hadn't been doing the work. I hadn't figured out these coping strategies. And so I went to the liquor store and I bought some beer and I drank. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, okay, so you were sober for a whole year, but what work did you do on yourself? Not a whole lot, you know? So that's when I realized, okay, you've got to do some work. You've got to dig through these emotions, figure out what comes up for you, how to handle them in a healthy way, develop some strategies, some habits, and just work through it bit by bit. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. I've been still continue to read tons of books. Hundreds of books have been in and out of my house from the library or Barnes and Noble. Like I've got that on lockdown. And so just developing strategies that make sense to me. So remaining to stay sober is extremely important to me, and it's not always at the forefront of my mind, but I do know that it's there, and I need to be cognizant of my habits and tools that I have built up over the years to maintain my sobriety. It's not like you reach a certain year or a certain amount of time that you've been sober that you're just like magically fixed. Like this is a lifelong thing. And so I just continue to work on it day after day, utilizing my tools and my strategies to feel happy, to feel grateful, to, feel like I can be who I was meant to be, and just feeling that absolute freedom that comes with not being tied to alcohol anymore.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. When was the last time you drank? Oh, that's a long time.
It was July 2021.
Wow. That's awesome. So now, what inspired you to start Sober Coach As You Are LLC? And how does it help individual in the sobriety journey?
Well, it's a funny story. So there's this girl that I met at it was called the Mystic Fair. It's kind of like this new age fair that we have here in Kansas City. And she had written a journal about discovering your authentic self, how to step into your divine womanhood. And her and I just like really connected. And so we started meeting for coffee and having her over, her and her boyfriend over, or her husband over for dinner. And one day, her and I are out. I have a pool in my backyard, and we're just kind of floating around on the pool. And I'm talking to her about how I just don't know who I really am. Like, what is my calling? What do I want to do? And we had this really interesting conversation. She told me how one day she just decided to up and quit her job. She had no savings, no plan, but she knew what her higher calling was, what her purpose in life was, and she was going to follow that. And it inspired me so much. I did the same exact thing. And I don't remember how it came about, but an email ended up in my inbox about coaching. It must have been a really good sales email because I ended up signing up for it and realized, you know what, I can use my sobriety and my experience with my setbacks, the tools and strategies that I have built, my knowledge of astrology and the Enneagram and values, and basically formulating programs that work specific to women. And that's what I did. I quit my job. I gave my job 1 week notice. I didn't have a bunch of money in savings. And I hired this group of coaches to help me build my business. And that was it.
So then what are the services that it offers? That's awesome.
So I do one-on-one coaching with women, and I have a newly formulated 6-month program, and I've worked with many women in a 3-month program. So kind of what it looks like, we have weekly coaching sessions, and we're uncovering who they really are. Because what I have found is when you're able to identify what is at the root of you and who your authentic self is, and you start pulling that out, then sobriety, or rather drinking, isn't really very important anymore. And you feel so much more empowered to live to your full potential and to be in alignment with your purpose, that you just don't you realize that drinking it's shit for you. It's total shit for you. It's not good for your body, for your mentality, for your emotions. And I mean, they tell me all the time, they're like, I just can't believe that I went so long drinking. Like, this is so amazing. This freedom, this feeling like I can be myself once again. Yeah. So like I said, I use the Enneagram, which I absolutely love. It pulls out their unique personality. And with that, I can match self-care that makes sense to them. So, like, for example, I am not a bath person. Like some people are like, oh, just go take a bath and relax. And I don't like baths because I get really hot and I can be in there for like 5 minutes and then I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Mhm.
So like seeing what different kind of self-care works for different women. We also figure out their habits. So everybody's got habits that they're doing today that one are contributing to the stress that's already existing in their lives. And two, it's not supporting who they are and what is within their innate predispositions. So based on that, we find habits that match their Enneagram type. And I also work with an astrologer who is amazing. And we go through my clients' natal charts and pull out their life purpose and their lesson in life. So everybody's got a life purpose based on the exact date and time that you were born, as well as the lesson that you are here to learn. And so we also throw that in there, and it helps them align the decisions that they're making in their day-to-day life. You know, does this align with my purpose? Is this helping me progress in my personal development? And then the last piece of my 3 pillars is life values. So everybody has life values. Like, do you value being independent? Do you like or do you value achievement? Do you value interdependence? You know, so everybody's got different values. And sometimes we put an overemphasis on a value, which then the rest of our values kind of get kicked to the curb and we forget about them. And when that happens, it creates stress in our lives. So bringing awareness to that, like, hey, you know, you are undervaluing this achievement or this independence. Like, I feel like maybe you're spending too much time with other people and you need to be spending more time with yourself. So, and then incorporating that self-care. So it's a very all encompassing, personalized experience. And it's been working, and I still keep in touch with all of my clients that have gone through the program, and I just love hearing about the new things that they're discovering, and it just really lights me up to hear, you know, how well they're doing on their sobriety journey.
So do you stay with them just for the 6 months and after that they're on their own, or can you stay with them and coach them longer than that?
So, like I said, there's a 3-month program and a 6-month program, and then I offer some long-term support. So there's going to be ebbs and flows in your life. There may be a really rough patch that you're headed towards, and you may need additional support. And so they're welcome to schedule time with me, and I can meet with them. And it's totally up to them at their convenience and based on their needs. You know, I don't want to waste anybody's time and have something scheduled and they're like, I'm feeling really great. Don't really need you right now, you know? And then when, you know, a stressor comes up, maybe it's the holidays, maybe there's a lot of layoffs going on right now. Like maybe they're getting laid off, or maybe they had this unexpected bill come up and they're like, I don't know what to do and I'm so stressed and I just want to have a drink, you know? It's available there for them.
And do you also provide a group or just one-on-one?
I'm actually starting to do group therapy. So I stayed away from it at first because the feedback I was getting was I don't want to do AA, and I feel like group therapy is like AA. So this is like kind of an alternative to that. But then I'm also now hearing like, hey, it would be really great to meet other sober women. And so maybe it could be just kind of like a networking type thing, like, not necessarily networking, but you know what I mean? Like a
Yes.
group of women who are going through the same things and they can share their stories and struggles. So it is definitely on my radar, but I don't have anything set up just yet.
So now, do you help people or just within women just within the United States, or they can be anywhere in the world?
Oh, I haven't even gotten any clients that are in my city. They've been all over the country, and in the UK predominantly.
Wow, this is
All of our
awesome.
calls are remote, so it's, you could be sitting in your pajamas at home, eating your popcorn, watching Netflix, and then call me up.
And I'll get you fixed up.
Exactly. Yes.
So, in your opinion, what is the most important aspect of maintaining, like to stay sober, and how does your coaching approach address that?
The main, the most important part of staying sober is not feeling, not getting on that flow. So when you're at the top and you're peaking and you're feeling really, really good, to say, oh, I don't need to do yoga today, or I don't need to do that meditation. I feel really good. Because what that does is it takes over that part of your brain that
Mm,
is keeping that steadiness that you need in your life. These habits and strategies, you've got to keep doing them. And it's for anybody. I mean, anybody that wants to achieve, a steady peace and calm life. Like there are habits and strategies that you can use in your daily practice.
yes.
And I mean, ask anybody, psychologists, other coaches, when you stop using your tools, that's when you'll find yourself, you know what, maybe I could have that drink,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
there's a happy hour coming up. Maybe I could go. I think I'll be okay. And then before you know it, you're right back.
Exactly. And sometimes too, you might tell yourself, oh, I will not drink, but maybe networking, talk to other people will just make me feel better. But that's not exactly what
Exactly.
happened when you get there.
Exactly. So never stop doing all the things that are helping you.
I
And it's
agree.
hard,
It is. It
I
is.
mean,
It is.
there's some days that I'm like, I don't want to do yoga today. I just want to jump in and start working. But, creating that self-discipline is so important.
Yes. So now, can you discuss the role of community and support and maintaining, like, and staying sober, and how you help individual build that network?
Yeah, so there's actually a ton of groups out there. There's virtual groups, there's in-person groups, depending upon your interests. So I always encourage the women that I work with to utilize their existing interests. Do you like going to the gym and working out? Or are you a regular yoga practitioner? Or maybe you just love books. So finding book clubs, joining a gym, and meeting other people that have similar interests, and then you'll attract other people that not only they don't necessarily have to be sober, but just other people that you can do other things with that don't completely revolve around alcohol. So inviting your friends for coffee or going to like an art studio and painting something, just making it not about drinking and more about that connection. There's websites like Meetup. So some of the bigger cities have really great meetup communities. You can see that there are sober communities in Meetup all over the country. And let's see what else. So there's a lot of non-alcoholic beverages.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of times, if you go on their website, they're holding events. There was a really big event 2 weeks ago in DC. what was it called? Gosh, I don't remember the name. It was like a non-alcoholic festival. And there were hundreds of people that showed up. There were mixologists and bartenders like teaching you how to make these really cool, fancy non-alcoholic drinks. And they were serving NA beverages. There was a DJ, there was prizes. Like it was a fun time, like completely without alcohol. So if you start looking for it, you'll find it. It's when you're not looking for it and just expecting these things to come to you, you can get frustrated.
Yes. So now, how do you help individuals deal with potential triggers? Because as you said yourself, you and your boyfriend decided to go on that trip, and you end up getting a drink. So those things will happen with people, especially when they're just starting to deciding not to drink anymore. It's easy for them to get that trigger, like, let's get a drink. Oh no, this will help me. Or even that maybe they get frustrated at work or something happened within the family. So how do you help them to not, when those triggers happen, to actually say no to themselves and not getting that drink?
Yeah, it's an excellent question and it comes up a lot. I believe awareness is very powerful and bringing awareness to situations that you can foresee. That's something that I work with my clients a lot. They'll say, hey, I've got this dinner party coming up and I'm kind of nervous about it. I think there's going to be a lot of drinking. And so we come up with a plan. So if you can have a plan ahead of time, like maybe you want to bring your own beverage if that's even acceptable. So in the summertime, there's always like bring your own beer. Like,
Yes.
so like I said, there's a ton of delicious and amazing non-alcoholic beverages out there. Just go get like a six pack and bring a few with you so you have something to drink, something to hold in your hand, and people aren't going to be asking you like, hey, let me get you a beer. Or, hey, would
Yes.
you like a glass of wine? Because you already have something. So you're already avoiding that conversation even coming up. It's also good to have a buddy with you that's on
Mm.
board or that is aware that you're not drinking. So you've kind of got that built-in accountability with you. So if somebody does ask you, they can kind of give you the stink eye over in the corner and be like, don't you dare drink that. But I feel like having a plan ahead of time is really good. And it's really funny because we build up these crazy scenarios in our head that, like, worst case scenarios, this is going to happen. And what am I going to do? And then you get there, you show up, nobody really cares what you're drinking or doing, and nothing even comes of it. So just realizing that what you're telling yourself is probably way worse than what's even going to happen.
I remember me what I used to do. If you invite me to a party and then since I don't drink, so I will bring like those plastic glass that look like a champagne glass, and then when I get there, I'll fill it up with water from your house, and I put it in I'm drinking, but it's really just water. It was the funniest thing ever.
Yes.
But since
Yes.
what I was doing is avoiding people offering me a drink because I know I'm going to vomit, so I just put thinking I'm drinking something, but it's just water I'm drinking.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a really good story too. Like, I don't think you want me to drink that because I will vomit on your shoes.
So you have an amazing, amazing story to tell. When are you planning on launching a book about it?
Oh my gosh. I have wanted to write a book for so long. I don't know. It's finding the time. I had a plan on finishing it this year and sending it off to an editor. So now that you've asked me and brought it to the forefront, maybe that'll be my thing of the year. My word of the year is authenticity, and I feel like that goes hand in hand with, getting my story out there. So you may have just set it off.
So can you offer any advice to individuals who are just starting the journey towards being sober?
Yeah, it's hard. Don't give up. Never give up. Even if you have setbacks, just remain open to opportunities. I feel like when you open yourself to new opportunities, people that you may have disagreed with in the past, or your political opinions are different, or religious beliefs are different, things like that. Be open to everything, because you never know what is going to land in your lap and be the next step that you need to take on your journey. Get really curious. There's a ton of resources online. I have some resources on my website. I've listed a couple books already that you can read. There's online support groups. There's a lot of women's groups out there. If you're women, I feel like finding another woman that you really connect with that has a similar story is really important and is going to be very beneficial to you on your journey. So you could search for, there's a lot of podcasts out there. One of my favorite podcasts is The Alcohol Tipping Point. So Deb is the host of the podcast, and she's actually a registered nurse. So she knows a lot about, kind of like the science and medical to alcohol. And she has a ton of really great guests on her show. There was a lady on there, I don't remember her name, but they called her the sober sexpert.
Ooh.
So having sex for the first time sober is really scary. And she talks about that, and she brings humor to it. There's tons of other podcasts out there. Just go on like Apple Podcasts or Spotify and just type in sober, and you'll find lots of podcasts. So you'll hear stories of other people. They give some great tips on, navigating sobriety. And, just start small, one day at a time. Don't look at it as forever, because when you look at it as forever, it can get really overwhelming, and you're like, I don't know if I can do this forever. You don't have to, just do it today.
One step at a time. So any advice for women who want to start their own business like you did?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know if I would recommend just like quitting your job like I did. It was very scary, but I'm also a firm believer in big risks. You'll get big rewards. Find your voice. Find what you are the most passionate about and make that be your voice. Be your authentic self. If you're trying to sell somebody and it feels icky and gross, like that's not your jam.
Yes.
Move on, find something else. Until you figure out what it is that really drives you and inspires you and gets you out of bed every day, then, maybe hold on to that 9 to 5 and not just leave at the first salesy email that lands in your inbox like I did. But I mean, that's what I did. I found something that I was really passionate about, that I knew a lot about, and felt like I could earn a sustainable income doing it. I feel like those are kind of the 3 magic components of starting your own business.
So now, how can someone reach out to you for help and support to stay sober?
I have a website. It's called As You Are Life Coaching. And I'm also on Instagram. My handle is sober_mover. And I'm also, my business, As You Are LLC, is on Facebook. It's just As You Are Life Coaching. And you can email me, Molly at asyouarelifecoaching.com. Love to speak to any and anyone that is looking to start a business or wanting to get sober. Sharing our stories together, I feel like, it's about that connection and connecting with somebody that that you resound with, you have the same, you feel like you're gotten the same
Yes.
flow and that you're kind of got the same goals, I feel is very, very important.
Yes, I agree with you with that. And I also thank you for giving me the chance to learn more about your story because I was very curious on how did you stay sober and the story behind it and how all of it started in the first place. And it's amazing what you are doing because alcohol is killing a lot of us in this country, and getting the help to stop it early is the best way to go. And then also, I know that there's a lot going on, especially with COVID hits. We don't know how to deal with them. We lost a job. Like I know company like Google, they're letting a lot of people go. You just lost everything. It's
Yeah.
like, what do I do with my life
Yeah.
now? Perhaps alcohol is the
Right.
calling. That's end up like, well, let me drink. Maybe I'll think about it tomorrow. Really, that's not the answer to it. Drinking is not going to help you. It's never will, and it will never do that either. It's just a moment that makes you feel good, and then tomorrow morning you wake up with the same problem. So what you are doing, Molly, it's
Exactly.
important because it's like a wake up call. Hey, you can drink, but don't make it a habit. Don't make it something that's like your to go for everything in your life. So I appreciate, especially you
Right.
are supporting women. That is something that I'm very passionate about, helping other women. So I guess we have the same vision, just in a different way of helping.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.